Here we go. Steve Dotto here. How the heck you doing this fine day? And welcome to Gray Matters, a podcast which has been away. This is the reboot of Gray Matters, and this is a really difficult show for me to do. This is really difficult because I feel really guilty that we stopped doing Gray Matters in the first place. We stopped a couple of years back, but 3 years ago now that we did our last episode of Gray Matters. And the bottom line was I had burned out. I had burned out doing the show, and I needed a break. And I didn't anticipate that the break was going to be this long. I thought I'd take a little hiatus, but every time I tried to get back into it, I don't know, something came up in life, something came up in my own security, something came up in business, and the time just didn't seem right. Plus, I struggled a little bit about what I wanted the content of the reboot of Gray Matters to be all about. So if you'll humor me for this episode as we kind of relaunch and tell you what you can expect from Gray Matters moving ahead, and because we have some exciting new things, and it's not just me; it's going to be we moving ahead. I'm going to be joined by a co-host on Gray Matters now, Viveka von Rosen, who I will introduce to you in a few moments. We will have a little chat about what we both let you get to know Vivica, those of you that don't know her, and also get a little feel for how we see the show moving ahead. Let me take a moment and talk to you about what the subject matter and the content of the podcast is going to be, because it's slightly different than the original Gray Matters, but still following very closely following the same theme. The original Gray Matters was very focused on baby boomers and Gen X online and online business, building online businesses and the issues that we face, our generations face, as we either reinvent ourselves or build and grow online businesses. And that extended into social issues that we were facing, a little bit about health and a little bit about mental health and security and family and all of those things. But we primarily had our overarching focus was the things that affected our business and the opportunities that we had as boomers and Gen X building online businesses. In this version, with Vivica and myself co-hosting, we are expanding that content into areas that interest us more. Still, it's primarily for people who are living an online life or working, part of their life is being online, but the online side of this podcast is definitely there. It's living and growing and surviving in the online world as baby boomers and Gen X. Professionally, building and growing our businesses, reinventing ourselves, that will certainly be a part of it. Now, Vivica's main business is coaching women who are transitioning from, as soon as I say transitioning, your ears perk up, transitioning from corporate world to entrepreneurial life. She primarily coaches them in that side of the business world. So she's very interested in people of our age who are going through some sort of a transition in business-wise as they migrate from kind of one environment to another. Very similar in a lot of ways to what we've been doing inside of the Gray Wave, and I've been doing with my community of baby boomers and Gen X, teaching them about online businesses. But we're also really interested in the social impact of technology, how it's changing, especially how boomers and Gen Xers are the forces that are pushing us hither and thither, moving us around. We'll make sure that we take time to talk about the social impact, understanding it, and understanding what we should be and can be doing in that space. We'll also spend some time talking about health, talking about health and wellness. We're as we age, we all know things are changing. Our health issues around our health are cropping up that we never really anticipated. Maybe we anticipated, but we were in denial of. Well, denial is it's past now, and now we are living the reality of what it's like to age in this world and what our fears are, what our hopes are, how it affects our family and our relationships, our future, our hopes for the future, and our maybe even a little bit about our regrets for the past. But I promise you that we will always try and deliver content of value. We will do it we will often try and look at the lighter side and try and find some humor in it, but we will not shy away from the difficult topics and the challenges we face. So we want this podcast to be incredibly valuable for one and for all. But I just want to take this few minutes before we jump in with Vivica to explain to you where we've been. And there's one other major change to, I think, all podcasts, but certainly to this podcast. Is in the past, Gray Matters was only available as a podcast. You'd get it from your podcast player, either Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever you happen to listen to your podcasts. And it's challenging for podcasts to grow in that environment because those platforms don't create an iterative scenario. They don't create an environment, a community where our viewers, our listeners, can interact with us. And the lifeblood of a podcast is tapping into what their audience is interested in, and engaging with them and listening to them and honoring what's important to them. And so it was always difficult for us to do that because there was no real place to have a conversation. Last year, YouTube started to create a new classification inside of YouTube of podcasts, so that YouTube suddenly became a place that podcasts could distribute. Not the only place that podcasts can distribute, but a place. And the beauty of YouTube, along with the fact that there's a video, it's got wonderful discovery where it introduces the podcast to people that it's appropriate for. But it also has comments. It has the ability for us to have a conversation, a place for the community to get together and for you to let us know exactly what you're thinking, and for us to engage in conversations, and hopefully then steer the the show in the right direction. Plus, it's also got video, which I think some people like to see our faces as we talk. But that's so a big part of our future moving ahead is going to be on YouTube. So if you're following this on your podcast player, if it suddenly reappeared in your feed because you happen to have never just deleted the subscription you had to Gray Matters, head over to YouTube as well and check out Dotto Tech, the Dotto Tech channel on YouTube, and there will be a playlist there, which is the Gray Matters podcast. So I'm going to encourage you to head over there to see us there and to let us know what you think, and welcome us back. You can give me shit for having been away for so long. Right now the plan is on Thursdays that we'll be dropping a new podcast each Thursday. Let me introduce you to Viveca. I feel strange relaunching the podcast. But at the same time, I realize it's the right thing to do. But here's why I feel funny about it. Is I kind of feel like I let myself down by stopping doing it in the first place. And so one of the tough things about us relaunching the podcast for me is I've got this guilt in this kind of the fact that and people burn out. I mean, when I stopped doing the podcast, I had to stop doing it, and there was no doubt. But then I've thought, like, every 3 months since I stopped doing it, I thought I should get the podcast going again. And I never got the podcast going again until
like me and my diets.
It is. It's sort of like that, except at least with your diet, you don't like go out in public and tell everybody, "Hey, I'm back on the diet." I hope you don't post on Facebook, "I'm back on a diet," and here's my before picture. There's no after picture yet, so everybody judge me. Oh my god! But so what finally got me off the kind of out of neutral was you and I are having a conversation about your new business. Now, for those of you that don't know, Vivica, for the longest time, you were identified by the world as the LinkedIn expert. And then you decided that you didn't want to be that anymore. I could take my ball and go home. Yeah. When I heard that, we were talking about how you're going to grow your new venture. And briefly, what's your new venture?
So the new venture is called Beyond the Dream Board, and I help women in their 50s and above, particularly executive women, kind of extricate themselves from their corporate position. Also work with influencers 50 plus who we've just become known as one thing and it doesn't fit anymore, much like my clothes right now. And we have to get out of the expectations that surround us around our jobs, around our titles, around how we're known, i.e. LinkedIn expert, and move into a space where we really feel like we're doing what we were put on this earth to do. And so I help women move from corporate and into a real calling-based entrepreneurship. You call it, oh my gosh, I've already forgotten.
Passionpreneur.
Passionpreneur. That's it. I love that.
It's
not enough to remember it, but I love it.
It's not my term. I stole it from Marie Forleo, who stole it from somebody else, I'm sure.
Exactly. But no, I love that passionpreneur. And I think it's so important, especially now, that we really do what we were put on this earth to do and use our gifts for, not to sound too like woo woo, but for the betterment of humankind. Because right now it's not.
So obviously, once I heard that, and you and I have been friends for many, many years,
Many years,
and
yes.
we've kind of been each other's sounding boards on a lot of our different business ventures. When I heard that, I said, I first of all, it resonated with me because with the gray wave, I've been
Yeah,
concentrating on helping baby boomers and Gen Xers reinvent themselves. Sounds almost identical, a little less fulfillment mission and a little more
right.
practical mission
Yeah,
as
yeah,
far as, teaching them how to build online businesses and reinvent themselves. And it was all about building the online business, not but of course, I said, well, what are you doing for promoting it, for marketing it?
yeah.
And you went, and
He
so
was
I
like,
say
"I
that
know I'm what's supposed to be doing, but"
and I said, well, you're doing almost exactly what I'm doing. So what you need to do is, I think you need to do a podcast because I know with your personality that you would be great. And I'm a big fan of what's happening with podcasts.
Yeah.
And then it was like a little switching headsets. You stupid, you're telling her to do what you're not doing yourself. And then I thought, wait a minute. One of the things about my podcast is, or me doing the gray wave again, is
Yeah.
I feel like I feel like I'm limited because I'm a 65-year-old white guy trying to tell everybody how to lead their lives, how
Yeah.
to lead, kind of have your best third act. That's the big term, right?
Right, right.
And I thought we could do this together, and
Yay!
that brings it gives me diversity. I'm
Yes, you
still
have
a
a
big
much,
fan of
much,
diversity.
much, much younger co-host.
That's right. So we've decided to relaunch the Gray
Yes.
Wave as a collaborative effort,
Yes.
and it's going to, and part of that is we're going to make it far more universal as far as its appeal. I
Yeah.
think to our demographics. We're still looking at baby boomers and Gen X. We're looking
Yeah.
at a certain age group, people who are looking at reinventing themselves, people looking at in the challenges that we face
Yes.
as people of a certain age living in this digital age. Trying to find an overarching theme. That's
Yeah.
that's that's the one that I put in place, because then now we can talk about business.
Yep.
We can talk about the personal challenges
Yep.
of transition. We can talk about ageism. But we can
Yep.
also talk about social issues and the health issues that we
Exactly.
are
We could
facing.
talk about menopause.
I'm big on menopause. I have a lot to say about menopause.
There
My
we
wife has
go.
been going through it since we became husband and wife, practically. She's having the longest perimenopause in the history of perimenopause. I don't know what the record is, but I'm going to look it up. 'Cause I think, I
'Cause
think
Shan might have it.
not sure she would really appreciate me sharing this with the entire podcast. But what are the there's zero chance she will ever listen. To the
So it's not a problem, really. I
yeah,
know, same thing with my husband.
that's one thing about content
They
creators like
support
us is
us in other ways.
we know this is the cone of silence for our spouses. They just they don't they yeah they, no interest. No interest in it. So what do you hope? So I'll talk a little bit about what I hope that
Yeah.
our community gets out of this. And this is by the way, this is the most self-serving of episodes that we will do, is this first one.
Absolutely.
We've already recorded. We've got a bunch of them recorded, but let's
Yeah.
let's just briefly tell me what you hope to get out of this podcast for you and for our audience.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm like going switch because I moved from the LinkedIn expert where I was working with a lot of white guys, sales teams, and so then I made this switch into Beyond the Dream Board, which was now focused at older women, and now like with this podcast, we're switching into a broader arena, and I think it's it's just the right time for gray wave voices, gray haired voices. I don't know, for our voices to be heard, not just yours and my voices, but the other people that we're bringing on the podcast, because there there's an irrelevancy that is being forced on the gray wave, right? And and the silver ceiling that's being pressed down on us, and it's baloney because we still have so much to give and so much to say, and we've got all of this experience behind us. And I mean, now more than ever, the words of wisdom maybe need to be shared more prolifically than on TikTok and
If I may
podcasts.
just interject, it's interesting how you talked about the silver ceiling.
Yeah.
And and this is recognizing ageism coming into my life,
Yeah.
where people are now judging me as being less than because
Yeah.
of the years and because of the
Yep.
color of my hair and because of my age. It's the first time that I have in my life experienced any form of ism,
Yep.
because I'm the privileged. I'm the white
Yep.
straight male, right? I've been privileged my whole life,
Yep.
and I've never had, I mean, people have judged me because I'm short. That sort of thing. A basketball, a basketball scholarship was not offered to me, but that's not the ism. But you, in your professional experience, and you've experienced those isms.
A little sexism. I mean, I'm very fortunate to have been born in Canada. And I had a very, very, very strong mother and supportive father. And so I really never came into this world thinking there wasn't anything I couldn't do, because my mom was just like, of course you can do whatever you want. So I didn't really experience much sexism until I got a little older and I started becoming invisible. I mean, because we use as women, we learn to use certain aspects of who we are just to get along, just to get by. And when we become invisible, it's very interesting. So the sexism and the ageism kind of happened at the same time for me.
What's the age equivalent of mansplaining? Is it
Yes, no, literally, this just came up. I wonder if I can find it here. Here we go. Condescendence.
condescendence?
Condescendence. A play on descendants, younger people in condescend. So condescendence, age splainers. You said mansplainer. It was age splainers,
Hmm.
mansplainers, but for age related assumptions. Wisdom deniers, people who refuse to acknowledge experience. Chrono snobs,
What is it?
chrono snobs, snobby about time and age. Chrono,
Oh,
like time, chrono snob. And then a passist, like racist or sexist, but discrimination based on your past. So a
oh, okay.
passist. Yeah. I'll share those all with
All of
you so
those
we can.
piss me off. That was one of my prime motivators for this. For when I first started Gray Matters, was I was getting pissed off and recognize. I almost felt like that. Be careful when you're playing with fire to the younger generations, because the boomers are still the biggest generation,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we
yeah,
own a ridiculous percentage of the wealth of the world.
yeah.
Now, I'm not saying this is a good thing. I'm not saying that this is socially acceptable, but it's a
Right.
fact.
It's
And
yeah,
and
yeah,
it's and when I did what kind of one of the things that got me started was when I was really heavily into building a presence on YouTube. It shocked me that YouTube didn't seem interested in advertising to boomers and Gen X. They wanted the millennials. And it didn't make sense to me because they didn't have the money.
where's the disposable income?
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah,
and consequently, the ads on my channel did very, very well because the companies that got it had
yeah.
kind of free reign to. I don't think that's changed. I think as a generations that they're not getting it. We're becoming even more invisible. I think.
You think we're becoming more invisible now? I think because, I mean, if you're looking at things like TikTok especially, there's just it is overrun with people younger than Gen X, let's just say. But I wonder, when you look at things like Facebook, which is mostly Gen X now, and ads through Facebook, I wonder if in fact we are more visible, not
Ah,
invisible, right?
I
I
have
I feel like
I have a take. I have a
you
take
have a
on that.
take. Okay.
So the thing about the social platforms is they are great at silo building, at building a silo of people
Yes,
that are.
yes,
So
exactly. Yeah.
consequently, you think that we are
Right.
more relevant because we
Yeah.
have relevance in that space, but we have relevance in that silo. It's people over the age of 40, I
White
almost
people,
guarantee
yeah,
you.
over the yeah,
Yep, and
exactly.
increasingly over 50,
Yep,
and
yep,
female,
absolutely.
growing female, but
Yep,
you're still strong in the male market because of your LinkedIn stuff. But that
yep.
silo, so you're relevant in that silo. But then you suddenly take a look at how, say, relevant you are in global TikTok. or
Oh,
that sort of thing.
irrelevant. Completely
Yeah.
irrelevant. Yeah, yeah.
And if you were
But
out pitching
yeah.
an idea or trying to grow a brand into a universal brand to all generations, the challenge with it. But the social platforms are so good at allowing us to
Mhm.
target our silo, to target
But I
people who
don't
are
want
like
all
minded.
generations. I mean,
Sorry.
yes, and, right? I don't want all generations.
No, you
You
don't.
don't want all
But
generations
but the
is
reason that you don't,
yeah.
the reason that that you kind of have the sense that ageism is maybe diminishing in some aspects
Mhm.
isn't that it's diminishing. It's just as strong. It's just we don't see it because we are
Mm.
being our herd is being parceled out from that herd. So we don't actually have we have less and less communication. Let
And also feel like, though, we're feeling it. So to what you said earlier, you never you never experienced isms before until you experienced ageism. And you're doing something, right? You're reinvigorating this podcast. I see, and again, completely algorithm. All of, my network is most definitely women 50 plus, maybe 40 plus. And so I'm seeing their content because algorithm and siloing and all of that. But what I do see is a movement. I mean, it was really interesting. I was tagged in a post on LinkedIn the other day, and I usually say LinkedIn groups suck. Like, they're useless. And I was tagged in this group, and it was incredibly awakening because already over 1,000 older women are a part of this group and supporting each other and getting our voices heard. I've got friends like who we will have on this podcast at some point, Janine Vanderberg, who, her voice on ageism, she speaks all over the world on it. And so I think because baby boomers and Gen X are still the biggest group of human beings on this earth, pretty much, at least with access to technology. I really think we are getting more heard. And it's not just my silo that's making me believe that.
in my goal for this podcast is serving that community
Yes.
specifically, and you need an angle. So specifically, how online life is changing, and things that are interesting to us,
Yeah.
concerns to us, opportunities and challenges for us in this online space. And so we're still going to be a big chunk of what we're going to cover is reinventing yourself, building online businesses,
Yeah.
the challenges of being a social and a content marketer, and the exciting aspects of that of that space. But as well, things that we're interested in and things that the online world is serving to us, how we're
Yeah.
dealing with our health, how we're dealing with
Yeah.
family and relationship issues.
What bra
Uh,
I should be wearing, apparently, according to my feed.
oh, you getting bras in your feed?
Oh, yeah, like the
Interesting.
big boulder holder, you're old and saggy, so now you need these new bras, yeah.
I get a lot of underwear ads,
So see,
man-made,
it's similar.
man-made. And actually, we bought the new man-made. They should be a sponsor, Canadian company.
There you
Very
go.
comfortable, very
Oh,
comfortable. The
very
package
good.
has never been more secure.
At least you're not, like, getting leaky bladder underwear commercials.
I was just writing down ideas for upcoming podcasts, and one of them I wrote down was guilty pleasures because how the algorithm. It's like if you happen to watch one pimple popping video, it's like game
Oh,
over.
game over. I know, it's
and
so true.
and how you actually kind of are not that upset about them sending you those videos, except when your spouse is looking over your shoulder saying, "What the hell are you watching?"
Yeah, exactly.
I don't mind watching it myself, but I don't want anybody knowing that I watch
That
it.
knowing that
Right?
I'm actually
The
watching
guilty.
it,
But so
exactly.
these are I think these are the exact topics that Gray
Yeah,
Matters is going to take on. We'll take on some serious topics. We'll take on some heartfelt ones,
yeah,
but we'll try and have a lot of fun as well. And that's
absolutely.
and looking for feedback from the community. So
Yeah. What do you guys wanna
deli-
hear about? Who do you want on?
exactly. Delivery wise, we're going to be delivering this both on YouTube and in your podcast player of choice. But I'm going to encourage all of our listeners to, if you have something to say, if you have a comment, look us up on YouTube and
Mhm.
take advantage of the YouTube comments. One of the reasons that I was so excited about relaunching a podcast is back in the day, way back in the day when I did
Way
podcasts
back
three
in the
years
day.
ago. 3 years ago, podcasts were difficult from one perspective. Well, multiple perspectives to make it a success. But it was very difficult to have a conversation with your community because
Mm.
podcast players, the podcast apps, do a shitty job of allowing conversation to happen. So where do you get feedback from your community, and where do you start conversations? And how do you turn it into an iterative process?
Love that.
But YouTube has jumped into the podcast world with both feet. So Vivica and I, one of the goals that we have is to really grow this podcast on YouTube specifically, not because we're certainly looking for the organic sharing and all of the growth that can happen as a result of being on YouTube. But additionally, the fact is that the comments area on YouTube is everybody can comment. We can get feedback. We can see exactly what's happening. We can have conversations with you, and you can give us guidance, the things that are interesting to you, the things that when we're hitting it, what your opinion is of what our takes are on the different topics, who you think we should be having as guests. We're going to really encourage you as much as possible to take advantage of the comments area. And it's YouTube is the place for that. You can still listen to us as an audio podcast on your podcast player, but on YouTube, it'll always be a video podcast. I hate dominating the time, Vivica, but I'm going to mention one other thing. We're not positive what the format's going to look like. We're playing with a couple of different ways of delivering our content. So we haven't locked down a firm format of they're going to be 35-minute, 40-minute podcasts. Right. They're all going to be interview based, or they're all going to be, we're going to be playing around with the format. And so each podcast will be a little bit different. And we'll even hopefully be doing some that we launch live. But that will invite people to join us live for the recording.
And it will always be me live. It won't be Vivekaa. It will actually
Sorry, say it again.
Me. It won't be my video clone. It will actually be me on these interviews.
Do you have a video clone?
Oh yeah, she sings.
We just wanted to kind of kick things off again, and I want to apologize to everybody for being gone for so long. There were some mitigating circumstances at times, which you will learn about as we go along. But I think those of you who've been following me on the Grey Wave for all the years that you've been following me, I think you're going to be delighted to get to know my good friend Viveka von Rosen, because she is a breath of fresh air. She understands the world of technology and the challenges we face, and is just another good person. So it's so no pressure, Vivica.
No pressure. He's only saying that because I'm half Canadian.
But I will say, Vivica, if it wasn't for me, I don't think that she'd even be able to record a video.
This is true.
Technically, if there are any issues, they will. If we have any technical issues where we do a podcast that the audio is less quality than we think it should be, or the video is less quality, it's going to be Vivica's fault. 100%.
It's 100% true.
Yeah.
Steve taught me how to use a green screen, and I never quite figured it out.
Join us each week. We're committing to one new podcast per week, and we look forward to your feedback, and we're glad to be back.
And Steve, when is this launching?
On your birthday?
Yes.
What date is your birthday?
It's the 13th.
Do you know what the 13th is?
Friday? No, it's a Thursday. It's February the 13th.
It's my heart surgery day.
No fucking way. I mean, no way.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
It'll be the second anniversary of those that don't know. I had a bypass. What? I had open heart surgery on the 13th of February.
So I was born and you were
It's your birthday, my rebirth day.
It's your rebirth day.
Yeah.
And here we are celebrating it together. Indeed. In the future, which is now.
Yes. And now I have to edit this. We're glad to be back. I'm glad to be here with you, Vivica. Let's make a difference.
Let's do it.
And there we have it, our first episode back, and now we're committed. We're into the process. Please join us on YouTube. Visit us there. Comment in the YouTube comments. Let us know what you're thinking. We're really looking forward to building this, rebuilding this podcast, and building terrific engagement and community with each and every one of you. On behalf of Vivica, I am Steve Dotto. Until next time, have fun storming the castle.